The movie begins with a hitman named Melvin wrapping up a job with his friend. He drives home and then disposes off the gruesome evidence of his crime. As he cleans up, his girlfriend Chantel arrives home. She is not at all disturbed to find him handling a dead body, but instead begins to demean him about everything, such as how he is behind on the house mortgage payments, her car payments, and about how he is a wimp for doing free favors for his hitmen buddies, who only take advantage of him without paying him. But as she does that, she then flips the script by starting to kiss him while telling him about the expensive things she wants. They start to get intimate, but Chantel accidentally steps on a body part and the moment is ruined, so she just walks away in disgust. At Melvin's next job with his team, he skillfully takes down a lot of guys, while his friends stand at a safe corner and occasionally fire off random shots in the air, pretending like they are working and backing him up, when they are really just drinking tea and letting him do all the work. He ends up eliminating all the targets without the help of his scummy friends. When it's time for them to get paid, he earns a $25,000 bonus for taking down the big boss, but his friend Cisco throws an enormous hissy fit in front of their boss Paris, and claims that he is the one that killed the big boss, and that the bonus should be his. Melvin, like the pushover he is, ends up voluntarily surrendering his bonus to Cisco, much to the derisive amusement of his other teammates. As a result of his helplessness in asserting himself, Melvin is seen drinking Maalox to relieve a developing stress-induced ulcer. Knowing that Melvin is kinda strapped for cash, Cisco offers to let him in on a weekend job, but Melvin reminds him that their boss Paris forbids taking unauthorized side jobs and declines. Melvin drives to a suburban house and it is revealed that he is engaged to a woman named Pam. And Pam informs him that she invited her parents over for dinner so that they can share the news of their engagement with them. Melvin is less than thrilled with the situation and again takes medication for his stress ulcer, which only gets worse when Pam tells him that she took $50,000 from his savings account and lent it to her father, who is in trouble with the IRS. Elsewhere, Melvin's other woman Chantel is cheating on him. Chantel's boyfriend makes fun of Melvin by calling him a clown and saying that he can't believe that Melvin gave her $50,000 and intends to give her $25,000 more. Chantel then says that Melvin thinks he is paying her bills, while she, in reality, doesn't have feelings for him and is just using him for money. Back at his house with Pam, Melvin has a nightmare where Pam starts yelling at him in Chantel's voice. Super stressed about money because he is juggling two demanding women, Melvin calls Cisco and tells him that he would like to take him up on his offer to do a side job. The next day Melvin finds out that the job in question isn't a hit, but a kidnapping. And the target is Keiko Nishi, whom they intend to ransom for a hefty sum to her father, Jiro Nishi, an electronics magnate. Melvin is skeptical about the job and asks Cisco how they can be sure Jiro Nishi will pay the money, but his concerns are mocked and dismissed out of hand. Unbeknownst to the group, Melvin's concerns turn out to be valid, because Jiro Nishi has gone bankrupt. He is so broke in fact, that his lawyer lends him money from his wallet, so that he can afford to pay his driver to go pick up his daughter from her prep school. As Melvin and his friends wait to ambush Keiko Nishi's car, Cisco and Crunch advise Melvin to dump both his girlfriends, because they are greedy money grabbers and don't give him any respect. But Melvin ends up admitting that he can't dump either of his women because he can't stand the thought of them not liking him anymore. In fact, he can't stand the thought of any person not liking him, which is why he is such a pushover. Cisco, in his own rude and obnoxious way, very reasonably points out to Melvin that as a hitman, the people he killed probably have relatives that don't think too highly of him, so it's ridiculous that he is bothered by people not liking him. Keiko Nishi's driver passes by and he is shot by Cisco and the crew. But as they are working, Chantel calls Melvin to ask for money while demeaning him and calling him pathetic. Cisco again urges Melvin to stand up to her, but he doesn't. Melvin then dresses up like a driver and goes to pick up Keiko. Keiko accepts his explanation that he is filling in for her regular driver because he is sick, and gets in the car. A classmate of hers insists on getting a ride with Keiko, but when Melvin tries to prevent this, Keiko's classmate yells at him like the spoiled rich boy he is and tells him to just shut up and do his job. In the car, Keiko and the rich boy make out, but when he tries to escalate their intimacy, Keiko tells him to back off. He doesn't listen to Keiko's protests, and tries to force it. He even says some racist things to her as he gets aggressive. Melvin is upset by the situation and saves Keiko by shooting the rich boy. Keiko freaks out, but Melvin and his crew proceed with the kidnapping. Melvin then apologizes to Keiko for unaliving her boyfriend, but says that he couldn't stand seeing him be rude to her. Keiko turns out to be a sassy one, and mockingly calls the guys who kidnapped her the Spice Boys. She is forced to record a ransom tape for her father, but it is hilariously miswritten and she sees her kidnappers for the idiots they are. When Cisco asks her to improvise her lines for the ransom tape, she takes the opportunity to call her kidnappers sexually frustrated losers on tape. This angers Cisco and he then writes a short script for her to read out loud that simply says that she will die if her father doesn't pay the money. After Keiko records the ransom tape, Melvin is forced to be on babysitting duty, and puts Keiko in the basement at Chantel's house. While there, Keiko witnesses Chantel being demanding and demeaning towards Melvin. Chantel even plays on his insecurities by saying she is starting not to like him because he hasn't yet given her the money she asked for. After promising to give her the money soon, Melvin then goes back to his other home which he shares with Pam, and meets her parents, who are prejudiced against him because he isn't Jewish. But despite their bad behavior, Melvin is polite to them and tries to secure their blessing to marry Pam. Elsewhere, Keiko's dad was getting ready to dramatically unalive himself with a knife when Cisco calls him and demands that he pay him $1 million if he ever wants to see his daughter again. Keiko's dad tells him that that won't be possible because he is bankrupt, but Cisco thinks he is simply playing hardball and doesn't believe him. When their phone call ends, Keiko's dad immediately calls his good friend Paris and tells him that his daughter has been kidnapped. Paris is furious to hear this and vows that the culprits will be unalived. Cisco is then summoned by his boss Paris to a meeting filled with deadly tension. Paris then informs all his men that someone dared to carry out an unauthorized kidnapping in his territory, and that this transgression is made even worse by the fact that the kidnapped victim is his goddaughter. Cisco realizes too late that the girl he kidnapped is his boss's godchild and that he will be in deep trouble if he is busted. Scared out of his mind, Cisco is barely able to hold himself together. Paris then puts him in charge of finding his goddaughter and unaliving the people who kidnapped her. Elsewhere, Chantel is still pissed off at Melvin for not giving her the money she wanted, but the guy she is cheating with urges her to simply take the money she already got from Melvin and move to LA with him. So then, the next morning she goes to the home Melvin shares with Pam and dumps him as soon as he opens the door. She also comes to drop off all his baggage at his doorstep, which includes a tied-up Keiko. Melvin scrambles to hide Keiko, who escapes twice from the trunk of his car and nearly runs into Pam. To stress him out even more is a very nerdy, very aggressive video store worker who rudely badgers him about returning a tape. When Pam leaves the house with her parents, Melvin tells Keiko that he will remove the gag from her mouth if she promises not to scream. She agrees not to scream, and he removes her gag. She then says that she wants to use the bathroom, but because her hands are still tied up, she asks that he help her by pulling her underwear down, which he does. Seeing that he is harmless, Keiko starts to talk to Melvin, and asks about his relationships with Pam and Chantel. When he opens up to her as they eat, she tells him that his two girlfriends take advantage of him because he makes it so easy, and that he needs to start taking responsibility for his life. She further says that his life is dysfunctional, and that he has codependency issues. Melvin seems thoughtful at her words, and tells her that she is really smart. Back at Jiro Nishi's house, without Cisco's permission, the trigger-happy Gump makes the mistake of calling Jiro Nishi again to demand the ransom money, and his phone call is traced. Paris and his men quickly move to apprehend him, and when they do find him, a panicked Cisco beats him before he even knows what's going on and makes Gump unwittingly accuse Melvin of being the mastermind behind the kidnapping. Cisco puts on a very dramatic show of being betrayed and shocked in front of the other goons, and then unalives Gump to shut him up forever before he can be questioned further. It is then reported to Paris that Melvin is the one who kidnapped his goddaughter. He is surprised and pissed off at the revelation because he never pegged Melvin as the type to do such a thing, but regardless, he still orders the rescue of Keiko and the unaliving of Melvin. Jiro, who is in the room with Paris, frets about what sort of unspeakable things Melvin must be doing to his daughter, but back at Melvin's place, contrary to what he fears, she is quite safe. Melvin feels sorry for Keiko and relieves her from her bondage. Having built a rapport, the two prepare dinner together, an act which leads to them almost hooking up. Heck, this guy's girlfriend may be a jerk, but he always seems ready and willing to cheat on her at the drop of a hat, first with Chantel and then with his hostage Keiko. But luckily, things are cut short when Keiko hits Melvin over the head with a kitchen mallet and attempts to escape. Melvin easily foils her attempt, ties her up again and puts her back in the trunk of his car. When Pam and her parents arrive from their shopping trip, her mother seems to have convinced her to break up with Melvin for not being Jewish, but at the same time she greedily worries if he will want his money back. Just then Crunch, who is getting ready to hop on a plane at the airport, tells Melvin that Keiko is Paris' godchild and also says Cisco threw them all under the bus in order to save himself. He advises Melvin to run because a hit squad is headed for his house. Crunch then hangs up the phone and leaves the country. Melvin hops into his car to run, but when he sees a picture of himself and Pam hanging in his car, he decides to stay. However, when he gets to the dining room he finds Cisco and two other goons sitting and chatting with Pam and her family. He sits down like everything's fine, but under the table they all start preparing their guns. Oblivious to what is going on, Pam's dad starts some drama at the dinner table when after a few too many drinks, he starts to tell his wife and daughter exactly what he thinks of them. He says that his daughter is a manipulative gold digger who doesn't deserve a man as nice as Melvin, and he also reveals he was plunged into debt not because of IRS troubles, but because his wife is addicted to plastic surgery. But none of this drama clocks to Melvin, because just then a shootout ensues in his house. More of Paris' goons arrive, and things look dire for him. Through all the chaos, he realizes Pam was going to break up with him, but he is over it and doesn't care much. He manages to escape with his life by shooting out the car tires of the goons' cars and then driving away in his own car. As he flees his pursuers, Keiko somehow manages to wiggle her way out of the trunk and onto the passenger seat, just as he takes out a large number of the goons. Melvin also runs into Chantel after accidentally ramming into her car. He retrieves the money she bullied him out of and finds that she was the one hanging onto the rented tape that he couldn't find and return to the video store. He then takes the opportunity to stand up to her and break up with her on his own terms. Ever the square peg, Melvin decides to return the overdue tape, and on the way there, Keiko asks him what will happen next. He tells her that he will drop her off somewhere. But she clarifies that she wants to know what next happens with them. Maybe because she is young and dumb, or seems to have developed a severe case of Stockholm Syndrome in the mere 24 hours she was held as a hostage, it becomes clear that she has romantic feelings for Melvin. And Melvin, the alleged hero and nice guy of this story, also has feelings for her. So he makes it clear that if they are going to try for a relationship, he can't be the only one in love, and further says that things won't work out between them if she can't accept his work as a hitman and that her life will be in constant danger. Keiko says she doesn't mind that he unalives people for a living, and that she loves how exciting his life is. Keiko's words seem to be enough for Melvin, and he tells her that they'll disappear together after he returns his overdue tape at the video store. They then seal the deal on their new relationship with a kiss. Cisco, who survived, appears out of nowhere and runs Keiko and Melvin off the road. For her safety he tells her that they need to separate but that they should meet in front of the video store later. When Melvin gets to the video store he hands in the tape to the nerd that had been harassing him with rude phone calls and gives him a piece of his mind and almost punches him, but Cisco shows up again. The two get into a final showdown, and Melvin ends Cisco by stabbing him with his own knife, but not before Cisco arms an explosive device. He exits the video store and is about to reunite with Keiko, but just then Paris and Keiko's dad arrive and confront Melvin, who simply runs back into the store. A moment later the building explodes and Keiko cries, but her father mistakes her tears of sorrow for tears of relief. Paris and Jiro, believing Melvin to be dead, call off the manhunt. Some time later, Keiko is back at her school and her father is no longer broke because he recouped his losses by making a film out of the story of her kidnapping. When she enters the limo that was sent to pick her up, the driver of the limo is Melvin's friend, Vince. They stop on a secluded road and Keiko is pleasantly surprised when Melvin shows up. Melvin is revealed to have survived the blast by taking shelter behind an enormous solid gold film stand-up made for the flop that bankrupted Jiro. The two reunite with a passionate kiss, and then ride off to their happily ever after. The end.